Reception podcast. I just want to thank you guys for coming out today, and we're just about to finish here. So thank you for your time, Raminder. I'm just kidding, by the way. Just welcome, guys. We got Raminder. She's a lovely, lovely, lovely lawyer, activist, psychic coach, everything. Um, Near and dear friend of actually a really my brother's girlfriend, now going to be wife soon,
Oh my God, yes.
right?
I didn't click in. Yeah, I know Adam as well. Not as
Yeah,
long as he is.
you know Adam,
Yeah, we went
right?
to. I
So
didn't realize that you were related to Adam. That
so
makes sense.
this is really interesting how we met, because me and Raminder connected, and I'm not going to go into details because, of course,
Yeah.
it's confidential. We connected with a legal matter, and I just started following her and started posting all this information, and just lovely, 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 just really spiritual, and it was really so encompassing. And for me, I've been on a journey of really just trying to dive a lot deeper into my spiritual self, and really just grow, and have more to give others. So I'm so blessed and thankful that you're here.
That's really
I
thank
I
you.
you know I we haven't, like, I feel like
Hello.
you're one of my best friends, but we've
That's
never met
amazing.
before. So
That's amazing.
the soul connects to another soul.
Can
That's
I
the purpose of the platform.
can I interrupt for a moment? My assistant, he's made a mistake,
Oh,
so I need your password to stream
oh,
there.
told you.
Do you want to share
That's
your
okay.
password live
Yeah.
with everyone?
Oh, am I live?
Okay.
And we'll start again, right?
We,
It's
we-
okay.
We're live,
Oh, we're live.
so
okay.
we just need if I can have you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so guys, just what we're gonna do for a minute here is we are just gonna
We're gonna hang out for a
we're just gonna talk for a minute. So Amanda,
Yeah.
we're live right now, and this
Yeah.
is cool because this actually happens. This is real life. Like there's no script here. There's no like this is this is part of the creation of a podcast, part of the creation of really anything that we do in life. It just sometimes there's situations that come up. So in your perspective, what do we do in these kinds of situations?
Well, we just got to roll with it. I think in life, you just, you got to roll with the punches. What else can you do? You get knocked down, you got to get back up and keep going. And this is just like a little blip in the, a little blip in the matrix.
You know what? And I'm actually kind of happy that you guys seen this, because this is real. Like this is the realest of real. And
Okay, well, tell us all about this. So, Raminder, give us a little introduction about yourself, who you are, and
yes,
Oh,
of course we are. No
Yeah,
way.
no,
We
no,
don't
we're
stop for
live.
nothing.
Oh, that's so funny.
We're
Okay.
live.
Yeah. So, well, thanks for having me. Appreciative
course.
of that. And I don't know what to call myself really. It's been like a discovery. And I was explaining before we started recording. I stopped practicing last year, so May of 2022.
Practicing law.
Practicing law, I should say. And kind of cliff notes of how that came about was I had to choose. I was doing my spiritual coaching business. I had left the firm life, got fired from the firm life because I wasn't leaving. And I started my own firm. I was contracting with my friend for a bit, started my own firm. And that's when I was doing a lot of human rights discrimination stuff. Before that, I was doing a lot of insurance fraud.
Wow.
And like forfeitures, type of stuff. Basically, like if an insurance firm wants to breach your coverage, we would be the lawyer that would give them opinions on whether they have grounds for coverage.
Right.
And which is kind of ironic because if I was still in that environment when mandates came out, I would have been in a complete mental, moral, ethical turmoil state, right?
Right.
So I got pushed out in like March of 2021, and then mandates back in September, right? And so I started my own firm, and I was doing all that, and I realized it was, I mean, yeah, sure, draining in a sense, but also you're up against the government in a lot of these situations that have unlimited resources. And so their
Yeah.
ability to suffocate small business owners or people that don't have the financial means, even people that are quite well off, and a legal bill is a lot.
Yeah.
They took advantage of the ignorance, essentially, not in a negative way, but people that don't know the law, right? The lay
Yeah.
person and the self-litigant. So for me, that was a tough thing, and it started giving me a lot of anxiety, and I realized like I need to stop, and I was making more change publicly as an activist. So you know what, I now call it redefining litigation by being a public advocate. So
Right.
litigating from the outside, teaching people of all backgrounds of different things about policy, different perspectives. So before my master's in law school, my bachelor's was in sociology, and so maybe that's why I connect with people a lot. Of course, I'm an empath and a healer, so that kind of plays a role in
Mhm.
the empathy part of it, I think, and connection. That's been really eye opening. But I saw like I am making way more change on a free public Instagram, and also I'm not restricted in what I can say.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
not restricted in what I can do. I'm not looking over my shoulder. And the advocacy really took off during farmers' protests. I don't know if you,
Oh yeah.
right, if you knew
Yeah.
that. So, anyways, I became one of the large advocates for that protest, and it was
Wow.
not planned. It was just that I was actually on a spiritual hiatus from my blog, and I have
Yeah.
a personal Instagram. So I was just kind of on there and seeing this going around. I'm like, what's going on? Like a little oblivious to it. So I was just in like this kind of dark night phase. And I was like, well, I feel like I should share this post that I just made on my personal Instagram on my blog. And so then I realized after, 'cause I could look back of, oh, that's why I was off. I needed to gain a lot of energy to come full force. And
Mm.
so because I was, you know, I don't want to say one of the only people talking about it because that's not true, but because at that time I had a pretty large following already,
Yeah.
like my message was getting further. And so I didn't really intentionally sign up to do it. And at that time, I was working full time in the firm billable life. And so the advocacy became a full time job. And that was when my guides were trying to push me out because I was like making infographics, while I'm doing billable work, right? And so, well, not billing my clients for that, but like I was working double time because I had to make sure I was getting other things done. And so I realized that my privilege with all my education was in my community, in Punjabi community, it was really meaningful
Mhm.
because I was able to break it down for people that may not understand it. Our parents, even individuals that aren't as educated in high school, speaking up for those in India or Punjab where our parents were born and bringing that, like the genocide that's happened there, all the discrimination. People assume, hey, they're all brown, they're all alike. Absolutely not, right? And so bringing that education piece taught me really like what I can bring as a value. And so it was humbling because I just kind of took my education for what it was. Like, oh, like I didn't really see it as something to utilize in that way. And
Right.
Mm.
so when all this started happening in Canada, I was like, well, this is not new, right? It's just that people of certain privilege or color privilege, right, are now starting to be impacted by it in ways that BIPOC and marginalized groups have been. So that was a huge part. And then, of course, talking about, well, how is this going to end up impacting us in different ways? So when I first started talking about the breach of human rights due to the mandate, I got a lot of hate for it. A lot of people saying that things wouldn't happen. And,
You were doing the right thing.
yeah, I was talking from the future of like, well, this is a cause and effect, very lawyer like cause
Yep.
and effect. What are all the steps that are going to happen?
And cause and effect is one of those things that it seems like really obvious to me, but a lot of
Exactly.
people, it's not obvious. They
Yeah.
don't understand that whatever you do has, either a positive or a negative outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're doing something, that they seem to not be aware that if you're making negative decisions within your life, that ultimately at some point down the
Mm-hmm.
road, it's going to have a negative impact.
100%. And it doesn't manifest till later.
It doesn't.
So a lot of people just assume that at this particular moment, I can, well, let's say if you don't correct it, right?
Yeah.
If you don't go
Yeah.
back or take
Yeah.
accountability, right?
Totally.
And so if you're like, oh, well, I've changed my perspective, I can take accountability over that versus the people that have chosen to take a really negative side and have now just created like a manifestation of that, which ends up
Right.
manifesting into physical stuff of sickness and disease, which a lot of people believe
Mental
is
turmoil.
people believe that that's fake. It's like no, every disease and like whatever you have is all based in energy. Whether that's
Yes.
generational,
Compound.
epigenetic, whether
Compound.
that's your fear,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and then obviously the combination of man-made stuff. I don't think I really answered your question of what I do.
Yeah.
So now it's like I focus, and now I'm now focusing on my spiritual healing business full time. So once I stopped practicing, was like all into coaching. So my clients that are doing coaching with me individually, it ends up being like holistic therapy with them. I of course do tarot,
Mhm.
look into their past lives, do a lot of like Akashic regression stuff. I do stuff around infertility, so healing the sacral chakra, which is where our womb is,
Yeah.
healing the womb space and being like, well, why hasn't it happened on an energetic and spiritual level?
Yeah.
Because I can just look at somebody and be like, oh, there's a lot going on there in your ego that is just your kid's not having it, and that's because these kids that are coming in now didn't sign up for generational trauma, didn't sign up for ego,
Yeah, exactly.
and so they just decide to stay up there until mommy and or daddy, or mommy, daddy, whoever it is, right?
Yeah.
Ends up kind
Doing
of
the work.
gaining perspective and doing work that they're not going to have to suffer from later.
She brought up a really interesting point that I kind of want to just kind of get your idea on it. And
Mhm.
she basically autism, because of course I'm ADHD and autism.
Yeah.
But she brought up Amanda brought up a really interesting point about the chemical imbalance between the mother and the father and whatnot, and the past lives of living. I know you don't do much in medical, but kind of what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, so generally, how I look at it when it comes to anybody on the spectrum, whether that's Down syndrome,
Mhm.
autism, or anything that would be labeled as sort of disability,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, a lot of the time, it's kind of rooted in what you weren't able to do before that you want to do now, right? So for
Mm.
you, it's easy for you to use that as your not scapegoat, but as what you say to do what you want.
Yes.
Right? So the reason that, let's say, people or children with Down syndrome are so open and honest is because they've been given the right to have no filter,
Right.
Mm.
Yeah.
right? And so they're not programmed like, you could have the ability to be programmed because you're aware and cognizant and you have the functioning of an adult,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And so it's just like, where do you fall on the spectrum of the spectrum?
Yeah.
And for them, it is the ability to live freely. Like, they're the happiest, they're the most honest, the most blunt. And
Mm.
what the problem ends up being in society is, oh, you can't say that.
Yeah.
Right? Similar to how children end up being programmed because they just say what they want, like, mom, F you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
You
I
can't talk to me like that. Well,
F you.
go sit in a corner.
and that's something that we do talk about with being autistic, is the fact that quite often people condemn autistic people.
Yeah.
One, because it's not obvious if you're autistic or not, but typically people who do have autism, I believe that we come into this world with a lot less societal awareness and caution as to fit within this box,
100%.
right? And then I find that people quite often will alienate the people who are a little bit different, and they'll condemn them and say, how dare you be so free? And it's just like, you know what?
100%.
I am here to make changes,
Yeah.
because this is what my contract here on earth was to do.
Yeah.
And just because I don't fit within your box doesn't mean that I'm not still fulfilling my purpose here.
Yeah.
Like,
100%. And coming to the parents' point, a lot of the time it's a learning lesson for the parents because they have to
Yeah.
take it down a notch, right?
Mm.
They have to learn things differently. They have to gain their own perspective. They have to gain empathy. And
Yeah.
what they do with that, we don't really know. But for them, that ends up being a lesson, right? And the lesson will continue to go on as long as they, um, well, if they end up denying that work.
yeah.
And so that's also a bigger problem because it comes, to resources, systemic oppression,
Mhm.
the access to resources, basically, right? Do you have kind of the ability to help your child?
Right.
Are you given that as a guarantee? Do you have to work extra hard for it?
Right.
And so then all those other factors, intersectional factors, come into play.
Mhm.
But 100%, you're here to be free, and people don't like
They don't
they
like
don't
that.
like freedom.
They don't like that freedom. And
No.
which actually brings me to this really interesting case in point. So I was in I've been in some really mentally abusive relationships, and I had paid thousands and thousands of dollars for therapy.
Mhm.
So I finally was like, you know what? I still want to pursue therapy, but my doctor gave me a referral to a therapist, which would be covered. But because of my autism, I wasn't allowed to go they were like, no, you're autistic. We won't see you. And so it created this like really big problem. So then I had to he had to rewrite the referral and
Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
I didn't even realize that you were also autistic. I didn't
Yeah,
know
I
that.
am,
Oh
yeah.
my God, okay.
And so he had to rewrite the referral and withdraw the autism factor just so that I could be
you're low risk.
yeah, so that I could be included in
Yes.
in the government funded
That's insane.
government funded therapy. And ultimately this is kind of, you know, where I feel like a lot of people get stuck because we get put in these boxes, and it's like, why is it because I'm autistic do I not get to have, you know, support from our government? And it's, you know, it's just one of those odd things to me.
And it's a cycle because then you go into society and they tell you you're not doing anything about it.
Mm.
Right?
And I'm
so there's
trying.
never a solution. Of course, you're trying.
Yeah.
And there's never a solution because they don't look at, well, why I was ranting in my head about insurance companies earlier.
Please share.
Companies. I think I was just watching oh yeah, it was a life insurance policy commercial on TV. And I was like, why do you have to have a policy to be like kind of covered and like be let go of? I mean, I guess in terms of the financial gain that the family gets, but like, why isn't that just a thing? Why do you have to pay a premium every
Yeah.
month in terms of like, well, if this were to happen, then this, right? I'm like,
Mhm.
it's just like they just pool this money in.
It's like a
people that don't use,
subscription.
yeah, people don't use it necessarily, right?
Yeah.
It's just a huge pool, and so I was just getting mad in my head, and I was like, funny, you're an insurance lawyer, yeah. Right? But of course, I can have different thoughts now that I'm out because it doesn't impact the work that I do.
Right.
I was always working with great people and great adjusters and great companies, so it's not like that. Everybody's just like a cog in the wheel of the system in one way or the other. But you know, even when like it's insurance example 101, like what's covered, right? All big pharma, medical, is anything holistic covered? I don't know if any company has coverage for coaches, naturopaths maybe, but any sort of holistic therapy.
But were
right?
were
Reiki.
the vaccines covered? Like I felt like the vaccines weren't covered. I feel like that they
They
somehow
were free.
well, they were free, but
Mhm.
but there was no ability to sue the company. Like you couldn't sue if you had a reaction to the vaccine. There was like no liability, which I didn't understand how that was even possible.
It's tough because what they've kind of used as their own scapegoat in those scenarios is that it's new. We're in an experimentation.
So then why
phase.
were people forced to
well,
take
exactly,
it?
right? The thing is, the government runs insurance companies, and everybody's in this system together, this wheel, and so they all kind of
Yeah.
work together. It's like thinking about like talking to yourself in the mirror, and then talking back to yourself. Like you're not getting a different opinion on anything,
No, you're not.
and like law and policy and all that is just like policy is not technically law, but it is something that we are run by, right? A lot of those times that policy is made or bills are passed, not actually passed through, I don't want to say the proper channels, but public debate and public interest is not on their top list of priority because they don't want to have to answer more questions. They like being in their echo chamber of what they want to do.
Mhm.
And again, it's all really toxic matrix stuff that you get sucked into and can't really get out. And so when it came to the vaccine, it was like, well, first of all, we created a pandemic, and now we're going to create a solution for the pandemic, and now you're not allowed to question us on the pandemic because you don't know anything.
Right.
And so it's just this whole cycle. And so when it comes to insurance, like, well, you know, they're not going to admit that there is the chance to have this reaction that many people did.
Yeah,
Right.
so many. And you know, like I saw it, but you had to look for it because once again the media is also owned by the government.
Yeah.
And so
69%.
yeah,
69?
69%.
That's what Elon Musk said. Well, it was funny. He actually posted something about it being 70%, and then he reposted 69, and yeah, it was just funny.
Yeah, like
Sorry.
basically the world is making fun of Canada and Trudeau because of our, you know, communism, you know, that's happening within our own
Yeah.
country.
And people think we have freedom.
We have no freedom.
Yeah, we don't have freedom in comparison to many other places, and that could be economically, it's
Yeah.
mentally right now. It's when it comes to medicine, right? Like it was not to get like real deep here, but a couple of months ago, my cousin passed away. He's, like, he was my brother essentially, and he was in BTH, and it was was just like wild because they're still asking for your passport at the front, your vaccine passport. I found ways around not giving it, even though like I'm open about having the V and I got it way before all this started coming out and I don't regret it or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I showed it like the first time and I was God, I am burning inside. And then I got, because I was there every day, I gained comfortability in not showing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, wow, like the amount that you just continue to discriminate against people. Like people are coming to see somebody die or
Yeah.
their loved one or coming here. Like you don't have to have it for an appointment, but you have to have it if you're staff or if you're coming to visit. Like, where's the
Yeah.
logic in any of this? And there isn't any. People are just playing along or they're too scared to say anything. And then, of
Mm.
course,
Yeah.
when we say something and we have that freedom of choice to use our voice, it's like, well, how dare you
Yeah.
make me uncomfortable?
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's a
Mhm.
big thing, right? And I get that on my social media a lot is, I just say things how they are and I make a lot of people feel uncomfortable because, I feel like I'm allowed to have an opinion
Mhm.
and I feel like everybody's perception, everyone can have their own perception, but I feel like it's important to be able to bring new viewpoints and I don't need mine by like passed by the government in order for it to be okay.
Your hall pass.
Yeah.
Like you have 20 minutes to do what you want.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you because
Yeah.
you are, a psychic coach.
Mhm.
So what does that look like? So somebody like me who's just coming into, I would say myself,
Yeah.
and I'm starting to be more empowered and I really want to, stand up for women and especially women who've been abused by narcissists.
Mhm.
You know, what sort of advice would you give somebody like me who is trying to empower other women with the awareness that that there's people out there that are creating psychological warfare and that with they're almost like bypassing someone's own intuition
Yeah.
and lowering the woman's frequency so that they can then have control.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give somebody like me?
Yeah, I mean that is rooted deeply in colonialism and the patriarchy. And so, I mean, you don't have to be white necessarily to be a narcissist. Definitely not true. But a lot of that is patriarchal. What's interesting about these dynamics that we find ourselves in that are abusive, especially before we go through our awakening,
Yeah.
is we're balancing out a lot of karma from past lives as well.
Yeah.
So where were we on the flip side of giving that treatment, right?
Yeah.
Or in which ways are we now able to balance out? And a lot of the time we go through these experiences to be able to teach others about it. Like I've been through a lot of hell myself.
Mm-hmm.
I went through a divorce. I'm not calling that hell. I'm still friends with him, so I always just like to say that. But in general, everything I've been through, or all the anxiety, depression, hardship with work, like that's all led me to actually do what I do with credibility, right? To be able to say, well, yeah, I've actually been in that position. Maybe not the exact same, but I can empathize with that. And so in the moment of it, we look at it, "Oh, my life sucks," which it does, right? Getting out takes a lot of empowerment because we have to continue to check ourselves and what we're willing to accept, which is where a lot of people kind of start to dip,
Right.
right? They start, the victim card ends up being the dominant thing. I can't get out or I can't do this. It's like you have the power to do it. Millions of people in the world have. But you're so deeply programmed either in your victimhood or in your current reality that
Mhm.
you can't see another timeline. You can't believe that you can have better, right? You'd rather kind of, a lot of people play martyr. I don't
Yeah.
get a lot of those sorts of clients
Yeah.
because I attract clients that have already done work on themselves or are really willing to look deeper in themselves. And if they fall off after an appointment, I can already tell in that, like, how we're reacting or talking to each other about whether they're taking what I'm saying or whether
Mm-hmm.
they're like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. I'm just going to go and stay in this really toxic relationship because it's good for me, right? It's like, I don't want that as a client anyway,
Right.
right? I want somebody that actually wants to see their true potential.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so we all have that within us because we all have multiple timelines. This is just like a timeline you chose. Are you going to continue to stay on this lane or take the exit on the highway
Right.
and find this new path, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, the narcissistic stuff is usually a lot of karma that's playing out, and indirectly ends up being the way that you find your voice. Because
It's
once you're
true.
able to stand up to that narcissism or disempowerment or patriarchal stuff, and it could also be with your mom, right? Or anybody that's female. It doesn't have to necessarily be a male. It could be a friend. Like,
Oh, definitely
it's all
not.
rooted in that ego of the
Yeah.
patriarchy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of, like, in South Asian culture or even Asian culture overall, the patriarchal stuff is deeply embedded in our moms or in our grandmas because of the internalized misogyny, and so they end up kind of doing the same thing and manifesting the same reality for their kids, even though they hated it. And so once we start to kind of see how these patterns duplicate, we're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, well, we are that pivotal generation of stopping it, whether or not we or all of us choose to have kids. We're in that gen that is not going to allow things to continue.
Right.
And so once we see, like, okay, well, we're the ones really making the switch right now, no matter what generation you're in, while you're making this switch, it's like, all right, like I was saying earlier, the kids aren't coming down until that work's done or until they know that they will be free from it, because they've already gone through many past lives of having to deal with the shit that they're like, well, I already cleared all that. I'm not coming to do it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so once we can kind of paint our own picture, we're able to better understand, well, why did this happen? And
Mm-hmm.
how has it led me to be able to make a different decision now?
Yeah.
How has it helped me help another? Right?
Yeah. Well, I'll just like say one thing. One
I
of the
love that.
things that
So
really
good.
registered for me was I was so disconnected. I had an idea that this was not right. I knew that something that was going on within the relationship was not okay.
Mm-hmm.
But because I hadn't done my own inner work yet, I wasn't able to connect that intuitive place of this isn't okay, how I'm being treated and how everything's being flipped and made my fault,
Mm-hmm.
that I had to really do the work myself to empower myself within the ability to know, you know what, when this comes up down the road, I know that it's not okay.
Yeah. You won't attract it though, because you know that,
Yeah.
right? When
Yeah.
our intuitions kind of beeping at us, what you did was you built a sense of security and validation in that inner voice of being like, I know
Mm.
what this means now. This is actually not right, and these are the reasons why, rather than
Yeah.
being
Mm.
like, I feel off, right? You become really strong and like, well, why is this off? Because I should not be treated like this.
Yeah.
And those kind of traits can also change in the other person if they choose a different timeline, if they
100%.
choose to heal, right? Like, I
Yeah.
don't think I had that perspective as much 4 or 5 years ago, but it's like, hey, if this person chooses to wake up tomorrow and like not be an addict or not be a narcissist
Yeah.
or not be abusive, and they actually commit to doing the work and having accountability, then sure, right? You can have the mutual effort to make something work. If it, not saying that people should stay in abusive situations, but that person also has the ability to change.
100%.
But when your intuition is telling you, well, this isn't happening, or they're continuing to go further down that path,
Like, I'm giving you this option. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm bringing it up. I'm like, hey, like, we can be a powerful duo,
Mm-hmm.
but if you're not willing to do the work and get vulnerable about your stuff, there you erase that timeline. Like, you can't
Yeah.
like, I had to kind of step off of that. So yeah, that's really cool. And the fact that you're aware and you know that everybody does have the option to, divert.
It's
Mm-hmm.
so fascinating. You mentioned vulnerability. I think that that's one of the key factors with, really just breaking through many moments. I think vulnerability is, and I've experienced actually it a number of times in the past, and actually I've been utilizing it a lot more where, hey, this is me. I'm vulnerable. Like this is just who I
Yeah.
am, right? And you if you like me, great. If you don't, I mean, there's always a tribe out there. There's always
Yeah.
a soul out there, and I think that comes across a lot of people as ego, right?
Because
So
they're not okay with vulnerability.
yeah,
They're
and
not okay with being
Vulnerability and
vulnerable.
freedom are the same emotions.
yeah,
Right? Okay, that's really great because I feel like, I do get, some accolades for being vulnerable, but I wasn't like that before because
Yeah.
I was so deeply disoriented from my upbringing and from, my past relationships that I didn't know how to be vulnerable. And now I'm really embracing that because I don't want to run the show. I just want to be a woman, and I want to be soft, and I want to be, cared for, and I don't want to have this big front.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
just,
want it.
Yeah, you just want to be you.
I just want to be okay and be
Right.
me, and I just want to
Yeah.
be like, it's okay, Amanda. Like, you don't have to be so strong.
Yeah. And what is the strength, right? It's basically, or what we see as strength. There's strength and vulnerability as well. There's courage and vulnerability.
Yeah.
Brene Brown talks a lot about that.
Yeah.
But overall, it's the protection, right? The strength is a coping mechanism.
Oh, for sure.
If I'm tough and nobody can break me down, I can't get hurt.
That was
right?
me. That was me. 100%. And I still kind of waver in that area
100%.
of just
We
like
all do.
of just trying to like be tough, but like I know that underneath that tough layer is just like a really vulnerable girl that didn't understand what was happening, and I wasn't connected enough into my own self to know that it's okay when something feels wrong, it's wrong. When I question something now, I don't have to question it for too long. I can just go, you know what? It doesn't fit right. It doesn't feel right. And I walk away.
Yeah. Are you familiar with your human design?
I'm not.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, so I'm kind of dabbling regarding shifting out of it a little bit, just so I can be more focused in a niche. But I do a lot of work around human design, and it's basically like our purpose, but it's like our body anatomy. So essentially similar to like a natal chart or a birth chart, except it's like basically an algorithm. I don't know what magic thing this is, but you put in your birth date and all that, similar to like a birth chart, and it gives you your body, right? Like, and it shows you your activations. It shows you like where you're defined or undefined in your design, and a lot of what we are ruled by, right? And so a lot of people that have those niggling intuitive feelings, their human design is very strong in their sacral authority, which is their gut response, or you can have an emotional authority in your sacral, which is your womb space or your gut is, which will basically tell you this doesn't feel right. And the problem with society is that, well, when I do the human design work, I tell you, well, where have you been deeply conditioned, right? So what are you, and what are you really good at? So what do you think you need to be doing versus what should you be doing?
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of what we think we should be doing is our programming, and the other things come really natural to us. It's usually not a surprise for the person, right?
I'm getting goosebumps. I love. This to me is I love this stuff.
Thanks. And so, in our emotional authority is our ability to just feel out what feels good and bad, right? And people want a reason why it's not going to work, but that's not our intuition. You cannot give a reason with your intuition. You just end up seeing why later.
Yeah.
Right?
And
I don't want to go here. Why not? You
get
figure
that.
out something blew up 2 days later. Oh shit! So I should have died rather than just listening to my intuition.
Yeah.
Like literally, people need the 3D validation, but when you're living
I couldn't.
in that space, no.
I couldn't. I'm a very I'm like that, and I very much like have the intuition, but I don't have necessarily the cognitive ability to understand what is actually happening, because my mind doesn't really operate on that level of manipulation and control, and I just kind of think like, I'm free, you should be free. And then when I'm getting these hits where I'm like, this isn't right, I've learned to just stick with it and just go, okay, I don't need to know on the 3D realm. But like you said, I left every narcissistic relationship I was ever in, and I didn't necessarily know why I was leaving. But after I left, oh my God.
Oh, you're like, whoa, I've never turned my head this way before.
It was
Like,
actually, it was
shoulder check.
terrifying.
There's a building here? Like, there's...
It was more like a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
I was like, I had a nuke bomb in my house that was like literally going to explode and kill me. And even though I had the cognitive ability to be like, no, get out. You need to get out and prove that you're not using me, that you actually love me and want to be with me. At that point, everything started getting shown. I just had I had one thing after the other happening over and over again, just showing me why I needed them
It's
out.
annoying, right? It's like a little mosquito in your ear that it's like, I can't even close my eyes for 2 seconds. You open up and there's something else there.
I was just paranoid all the time because my intuition was so
Yeah.
strong, and I didn't know why. And I was like, okay, this is this. Like, you're out. Prove to me that you want to be with me. Prove that you love me. Prove that you're not slandering me to all your friends, blah, blah, blah. And then after everything, ended, it was like it all came to the surface. And I'm talking on multiple different, relationships. I was shown why I actually needed to get out. And now I'm finally in a place, and I really want other women to understand that we do not need the evidence. You don't need the evidence in order to know that something is not right. What you need as a woman is just to be in tune.
Mm-hmm.
And if you feel like something is not right, you need to get out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in our design, there's a couple of, well, it depends on your design. There's 2 things for our awareness. You can either be aware and intuitive or logical and strategic. Not only, but the thing is, we as society, especially in the West, are programmed to be logical, right?
And
We're
I am
programmed
not.
to need the evidence.
I'm not logical at all.
Yeah, and so you likely have your intuitive awareness very strong in your chart as like your dictator.
Yeah.
And so we have to unprogram all of what we are deprogram, all of what we've learned we need to have, or where's the security, where's the assurance, right? For a lot of clients, it's like, well, how do I know I'll be okay? Well, what's on the other side of the decision? I'm like,
Well, what's
you're not
okay?
gonna know unless you actually do something about it.
What does
Yeah.
okay mean? Or what does okay mean? Just
Yeah.
back to simple. Like, what's your version of okay versus mine? Like sometimes just getting back to that state of okay, it's hard for people to even get there.
Yeah, it's like relative to what we need in that specific moment, right? And the anxiety and the uncertainty is what people try to avoid, and so they'll stay in those toxic environments. Like, okay, well, I have a roof over my head. Okay, well, I'm eating, or at least I know what to expect every day, right? Because you're just taught to believe that that environment you're in is the way in which you'll succeed.
Right.
And it, like, actually so interesting. So I don't TikTok too much, but I came across this, whatever TikTok reel, but basically about these Punjabi page that just was blasting these people that got divorced. I guess they're like an influencer couple or something. And I was like looking at the comments. A lot of people I know and friends of mine that are like pretty influential in the South Asian community were commenting. And then I was like, I'm going to comment just generally, because I was like, when I got divorced, it's like the amount of messages I got and sometimes still get when people realize I'm divorced is like beyond, because so many people are just taught you got to stay in the scenario, or you know, like the moms did, the grandmas did, the cousins are, right? And so they're like, wow, you're so open about it. Oh, wow, like you've given me hope. So like a lot of people have been on my platform for 6 to 10 years. And so they can see how much, like, from graduating law school to then when I did get married at that time, now my divorce, now my spiritual journey, now announcing I'm getting remarried. Like, it's like crazy when sometimes people message me saying I've been here since like 2015 or 2016. And I'm like, whoa, right? Because like, too. Holy shit, right? Like, they're like, holy shit, like,
the evolution.
We can see, right?
The growth.
I just got
growth.
so much, like, I got chills went through me because
the empowerment, no matter what we're going through, for them, it's like that has become enough for me. In being myself, I think.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I find that the more authentic I am and true I am to myself, it resonates with other people.
100%.
The people who it doesn't resonate for, it almost seems like they're living a lie.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Well, they built up that story in their head of who they need to be, right? Or what needs to be okay, or, oh, I can't even consider whether this could be off, or they don't even want to look at, never mind if they know, they don't even want to look at if there could be something they want to adjust, right?
Yeah.
Am I happy in my marriage? Am I happy in my job? Am I fulfilled? And just like the first thought, they're going to shut it off.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I need to go out, right? Or I
Shut
need
it
to
off
go
and
do
watch the news.
yeah, I need to go do something, or I need to like distract myself. I need to disassociate by going on social media. Because I mean, I remember those first times where those thoughts started coming to my head. I was like,
It's almost like a little bit of a danger side because you've never seen it before, and
Yeah.
we're so used to like packing our feelings away. And when we start to embrace that, it becomes a sense of danger and fear and all these uncertainties. And you know, it's perfect example. My parents, my parents are a great example. I mean, love them to death, but their ritual is to come home, watch the news, and compound negative. Just negative. And then now at this point, whenever the phone rings, oh my God. Who's that?
yeah,
Like it's like
yeah.
it's a source of stress, anxiety, and the chemical buildup. The just that whole experience, the compounding of that is just I like it. It's crazy. It's insane.
Yeah, just like disassociate.
Yeah.
You're like, that's the truth.
like when I was married, and I wonder if this relates to you. I literally got married, and there wasn't a single thought ever until basically the year that we split up that I would ever leave. And I was just like, I am in this for like the end. And then when
in it to win it.
in it to win it, and then all of a sudden, I think the buildup of my intuition was starting to happen. I was like, something's not right. Something's not right. I need to leave. Like, did that happen for you, where you were just kind of like, you were kind of in it permanently in your mind, and then all of a sudden something shifted?
I think I thought that at that time. I've gone through so many rebirths, but like everything manifested according to the timeline I wanted, right? Like,
Yeah.
if I was on that timeline, my plan would have been to already have 3 kids, right? Like, being divorced and getting remarried was not on my timeline, nor did I think that it would be acceptable. I'd prepared to be homeless and all this stuff. None of that happened. My parents were very supportive. I had support of all my family. So I was just like, that's to the point I got to. And like I said, I don't have a negative relationship with my ex-husband. I mean, we're very different people. He's now remarried. I'm getting remarried, like I said. So it was just like, we're different, right? Like, I just tried to fit, just tried to like fit these shapes together that were just like, you're just not compatible, right? It's like you're doing this Rubik's Cube forever.
Yeah.
And so people like wanted a reason, like, well, why did you get divorced? Why? What was it? And I was
They
like,
want the analytical, like,
yeah,
point for point.
did somebody cheat? Did somebody like, do something? Like, no, none of that happened. Nobody hit each other. But like, it was just a day where it was like something happened that had happened dozens of times before. And this time I was actually done. Like, did I have thoughts of leaving before? Yeah. But I think I tried to convince myself more than when the actual moment happened, I didn't look back. I was like, no, I'm sticking to it.
So just about your Instagram, and like, how would you want, like, for our viewers today, like, how will they connect with you? Do you have a web page? Do you have an Instagram page? And if someone wanted to reach out, what would be your preference?
Yeah, so my Instagram is the.rkh, just my initials, and then the rkh.com is my website. So
The what?
The rkh.com
Okay.
is my website, and so there's an option to book online directly there. You're also able to contact me through there. Usually I prefer that it goes by email, because sometimes I don't catch up on my direct messages. Depending on how busy I am and stuff
and
like
whose
that.
name it is.
Yeah, whose name, if it's someone I don't know, or like, like sometimes I try to go through them.
Yeah.
But it's really, really hard, because a lot of the times it is people energy dumping. And so I try to just protect my energy that way.
Yeah.
I used to be really bad and like, I need to read every message and respond. And I was like, you literally can't do that.
Yeah.
Especially as your page grows and stuff. So
yeah, you have a large following.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you do. And it goes to show, I feel like, like, you have something that people want. Obviously, like, I want your glasses. I want your glasses, your skin, and your hair.
Shoes, so
could I just like import into your body for like a little bit?
Raminder, just leave your glasses there and leave your shoes there, and then
we're good. I'll just go bare feet. Yeah,
that was part of the deal.
So funny. Yeah, info@thearkh.com is my email. I always get back to my emails.
Okay.
And so those are kind of the best ways to get in contact with me.
Okay, that's good to know, just so that our viewers have a way to reach out. I'm like the total opposite. Even with our guests here, I'm always like, just hit me up on the social media page. Don't send me an email. I have completely avoided that society thing. Like my kids are like, Mom, you know, like you're missing all these appointments. I'm like, just tell them to call me.
Yeah.
You know, but nobody works like that anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of old school, and I like to like have a phone call conversation or.
Yeah, I don't.
I just,
Right?
I don't.
I just got a quick thought, just kind of like step back a little bit. What's like a morning look like for Raminder? So Raminder wakes up, like, is there like some sort of meditation? Is there some sort of like how do you sort of prepare yourself to create that safe space for a client or for business or even just for yourself? Like what does the beginning look like?
I need to get really like back on my routine of that, but I have a funny anecdote. So our videographer for our wedding is super cool, and he came over and did like a couples quiz, like GQ style, a couple weeks ago in our apartment. And he asked Raj, my fiance, what's the first thing Raminder does when she wakes up? And I thought he was gonna say brush or make the bed. He's like, take off her mouth tape, and I was like, oh my god. So like I don't know if you've heard of mouth taping. My friend got me on it, but it helps you sleep better, and like it doesn't give you dry mouth. So you tape it, you know, like just like that bandage tape, just like a little bit in the middle so your mouth doesn't open at night, and it gives you deeper sleep. It helps with snoring.
Wow.
And not having dry mouth. Like,
this is like a game changer.
So do that.
I apparently blow bubbles. Okay.
Yeah. So there, you'll just have a little bit of space where you can like breathe out. And so that's definitely step one. I was like, oh my God, you know me too well.
Take the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, especially because he makes fun of me because he doesn't mouth tape. If I was ideally like on my really good routine, it would be like meditating in the morning. I don't like to be super like loud on my socials and being like, oh, okay, I'm gonna check everything. Like, you know, I brush first, then I make the bed, because I once heard that you're more productive if you do something in between those two things. I don't even know, I read an article how long ago about that. And so yeah, like if I, you know, if I have clients in the day, then I'm just making sure everything is prepared. Like, is my computer set up? Do I have like my notes? Because I'm like old school. I take handwritten notes. I might want to get one of those notepads that like convert into a document. So I'm like, I have like these binders.
Android's good for that.
Yeah, Android's good for that. So that's what it looks like right now. And a lot of like wedding planning, meditating for sure. Like if I'm not physically sitting down and meditating and connecting with my guides, which like I said, I need to get on. So just a note for others, like if you fall off, it's okay, right?
Yeah.
Because like sometimes it's hard to maintain that routine, and I try my best. So if I'm not doing that, then before bed, like I'll pray in my head and I put my meditation on to at least release. And I like to, you know, check in with my energy and stuff. And I've just been more cautious of that and like getting back into a workout routine and stuff, because the energy's been like up and down. And so it just depends on the season I'm in.
Oh,
really,
that's fascinating. I love how you mentioned that, the seasons, because, you know, even the seasons of winter, spring, summer, fall, our energies are different, right?
100%.
You know, when it's raining outside, it's hard to look at the external and find the internal grace, right? So it's interesting you mentioned that.
I'm a lot less motivated in the rain.
Yeah. Oh, me too. Like today was great. I was like,
I would love to bring you on again. Like,
I would love
my God.
to be
Like
back.
we need at least 8 hours to be able to talk to you.
I would love to be back.
I
like,
agree, but I have one more question, because we talked about this.
I have lots more questions.
Well, we talked about this earlier. Was, you know, like you said, like, are you being spiritually attacked? What is being spiritually attacked? And I'd like you to explain this, because I quite often feel that I'm getting spiritually attacked because of my just kind of openness to be like, just to say what I'm thinking.
Right.
And then I feel like it gets, you know, turned around and used against me. And one, like, what is being spiritually attacked? And two, how can we close in the sphere of our energy so that one can protect themselves better?
Yeah, not be penetrated. That sounds such a weird word.
Yeah. I haven't been penetrated in a year, by the way.
Whoa, where is this going?
To not be
energetically pierced. Energetically pierced.
After hours version part 2. So it's interesting. So, you know how I was saying that I wanted to shift more out of the human design stuff and focus on my niche. So I now started doing more clearing around this because I'm focusing on the South Asian market, but it doesn't have to be because like black magic is super big in the South Asian community.
Yeah.
And what that is, black magic overall is like intentional bad vibes towards a person.
Right.
Right. But there's a couple of different scenarios. You can have it where people are intentionally spewing hate or like doing spells and all this shit to make you suffer. And then there's like the unintentional side, which happens more often.
Yeah.
So the people around you, like you said, you are starting to get like negativity about your freedom and vulnerability, but also the accolades, right?
Yeah.
So it's a sign because you have the balance, the yin and yang.
Yeah.
And so kind of how this happens is if there are a lot of people around that have this negative energy, and it could be family, it could be friends, it could be followers, right? They kind of build up this, I call them dementors, right? I'm a big Harry Potter fan. So they build up this like strength in numbers essentially, right? A negative army, right? They don't even know each other, but their vibration is this negative army.
Yeah.
And they're like, Amanda's one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so like it comes on you because you're interacting on this platform, right? And so you can naturally feel just like really low, or it could be one person that's like, I'm gonna like, I see her every day and I fucking hate her.
Oh yeah. I got a few white witches on my that are like watching my story.
Creepy
like,
AF.
Where's my camera? I'd be like, fuck you, you fucking white witch.
Yeah. They exist. They
That's
exist
the
in
vulnerability.
any color. Yeah. So
that's my hard shell.
Yeah. So it's honestly something that we've all probably gone through. And it also happens when you're up leveling and upgrading energetically, right? There are going to be those low vibe people that try to take you down. And so the way that we can kind of keep ourselves safe or connect more to ourselves is like definitely meditation in whatever way is possible. Like some people get really antsy when it comes to guided meditations or sitting down. Or, you know, especially with like if you have ADHD and stuff, you're like, it's going to be really hard to sit down for a bit, but also kind of challenging yourself. I always say to my clients with like starting with 5 minutes, incrementally going up, because it's also something that you can train yourself to do. Don't jump into an hour meditation because like you're setting yourself up for failure unless you know you can sit still already, right? So guided meditations help because you're listening to a voice. You're not just with your anxious thoughts, and eventually you're able to kind of like sift that out and do more like frequency music. And speaking of frequency music, if you know during the day, or I do it at nighttime mostly, putting that on. So one that's set to the intention. So it could be like healing. Right now my fiance is sick, so I have like an immune boosting frequency on.
And how many hertz is
like
many hertz is that?
It just kind of depends. It could be from like 200 something to 800 something depending on it. Wow. And so yeah, like having that on all night, because some of these are made to be like 8 hours, 10 hours, 11 hours. So it just plays, and that can make you more zen. And honestly, the biggest thing in protecting yourself is setting boundaries, and people hate setting boundaries. So if you're still interacting with people like personally that are triggering you as well on a daily basis, it's time to like assert those boundaries so you can protect it and become less penetrable. And so just like doing things that are fulfilling, self-love, inner child work. How's your inner child feeling? Because like you said, it's like coping mechanisms that were built up. That was something I wanted to touch on briefly before and I forgot. These coping mechanisms that we build up growing up. For you guys, it would have been a lot to do with your autism as well, right? Like how were you treated differently? How did you feel that you were unwelcome? Where were you less valued, right?
I think all of those.
Yeah, all of those. But it's like how did you as a child protect yourself in those moments? You shut down, right? And so
I went and played with frogs.
Yeah, so that could also even be a connection now, right? Or looking out for frogs. So always checking in with your little girl or little boy. Oh my God, so funny.
You know what? We've done a few interviews so far, and nobody has given her goosebumps.
Dude,
like
that
that.
just like look at my skin. Can you see that?
I can see that. Yeah.
Because she could
wow,
I'm speechless.
I have this very deep connection to frogs, and because I think as a child that was my go-to.
Exactly.
I went to frogs and I just loved their feeling. And then when I was really at my dark night of the soul beginning, what did I go to? I went into frog medicine. So I
Oh,
tried
wow.
a couple things that were both from frogs. And so I'm definitely, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, your inner child. It's like, and when you look at it, you're like, oh, that's common sense, right? Because you're like, oh, that's a connection. But because we just kind of grow to have the disconnect, we forget that all of our trauma is rooted in her, right?
Yeah.
And so, what would she or he really have enjoyed? So, I always tell my clients once a week, do something, whether that's like, you freaking want Little Caesars, or you like, for me, it was like Little Caesars and Spy Kids, right? It's like, like, what do you want to watch? What do you want to eat? Do you want to go to the movies? Do you want to walk around the mall? Do you want to go to, the park? Like, what is it that is going to make your inner child like squeal
Happy.
and happy? That like
Yes,
maybe they
yes.
weren't allowed to do more of, or maybe they really liked doing, and like really
Yeah.
focusing on that, because that ends up raising your vibe, which repels people from penetrating your energy.
Yeah.
Remember I shared with you one time. I actually like to twirl in circles, and that raises like
Oh
I got
yeah,
this,
yeah,
like, I
dancing.
got-
That's like
I
a
don't-
form of dance.
No, but it's basically all it is just spinning.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll be in one place and I'll just spin,
Mm-hmm.
and it sends this like I don't know what it is. There's just something inside of me
I
that
love it
just
too,
makes me
Craig.
just like
Think of like
you know,
just
I
a
look at the
spiral.
light,
It's creating this frequency.
I just
Oh, it's
I
amazing.
feel this energy, and then I manifest all the things that I want to do in life, and I'm just like, it's just the foundation of it's like me being born. It's
No,
just the birth
100%.
of something inside of me.
Yeah.
And I love how you mentioned that, because I that just totally relates to that. Oh
Yeah.
my God, I fucking love you. I love this conversation.
Yeah. I can't wait to have you
Oh, I
back.
can't wait
to Oh my
be
God.
back. It's gonna be
Are you
fun.
available tomorrow? No, I'm just kidding.
I'll
Like,
be available.
It would be really nice just to, because I feel like you have such a vast amount of knowledge, and
Oh,
the thing that I really appreciate is your ability to to have so much just so much intuition, but you also have the intellectual ability to put it out into the world so that other people fully understand it.
Oh, thank you.
And I think
That really is my goal at like the core.
that's
So
a
I
gift.
appreciate
Like
that so
I'm
much.
I'm watching magic in front of me.
Oh my God, stop.
Yeah.
Seriously, because I don't have that. I only have the intuitive part of me. I don't have the ability to speak it in a way that is well received. And I really aspire to be able to do that.
That's so nice.
I told you you'd love her.
I do. I'm
Right?
like I'm
So
getting
nice. I
like
told
really
you.
emotional because
Oh,
I've
that's
just
so kind.
I think that I can see like within the puzzle of myself, I'm currently just like looking at you as like a mentor and
Aw.
just somebody that like I need that in my life, and I can see how you're gonna help so many women.
I'm actually kind of
Thank
tearing
you.
up too right now.
Oh my
'cause
God,
it's,
guys.
It's, no, it's you know what? It's so deep and meaningful that I think a lot of people. It's like the inner child that's not there that becomes there, and it's so nice that you're the voice for so many people, right? And that's I mean, the whole purpose of this podcast and for everything. I speak for myself. For everything that I'm doing, is just really to help people, and you're just you're
You're
just
doing
you're
it.
so
Oh my
lovely.
God,
You're
thank
just so
you.
lovely.
That that really will stick with me. I needed that, honestly.
Like,
you're
right
so
now.
lovely.
I can see
appreciate
it.
that.
I can see it so clearly.
Mhm.
Just how you have that duality and how
Craig.
you've been able to merge it. And I feel like if you can just keep being authentically you, how many more lives, especially women, that you're gonna bring home.
Yeah, bring home. That's the word.
You're gonna bring
Let's go
people
home, guys.
Yeah. That's the goal.
That's the
You know, I
goal.
aspire to do that. So it's very humbling to hear that from you guys. So thank you.
Well,
So
we
if-
love you to death.
If you could
Love you
tell
guys too.
everybody once again your Instagram and just your webpage, and then we'll wrap up
Yeah.
and have you back. I'd love to have you back.
For sure. I'll be back. Yeah. So my Instagram is the.rkh. Website is therkh.com. Better to contact me through my info or my contact page there, or just email info@therkh.com. And now that you say women, I also have a Her Authentic Self
Her
self-love healing program, which is based on helping women heal certain parts of their life, like the patriarchy and the inner child, and gaining confidence. So that starts in June until July. So
Okay, so and this
Sign
is
up, guys.
how much is that? I want to join that.
I have a 444 for the month,
Okay.
which is like basically what I charge for one call, but you get access to like about over 10 things.
Guys,
Okay.
sign up.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
that's-
only 10 spots, so
Okay, that's beautiful.
but
Thank
space
you.
for you if you wish.
Thank you so much, Raminder.
You're welcome.
I feel so blessed and so grateful to have this conversation because I feel empowered even more
Aw.
just by having this. And I love that you're wearing white.
Oh my gosh.
You know, like it's almost like because in ceremony people are to wear white
Oh
because
my
white
gosh.
actually has the entire
that's the
rainbow
sun.
within it.
Oh.
And
Oh wow, that hits me.
you know, and it's just like how you had that intuitive awareness to basically come in and be, you know, a Shira of, you know, like, you know, women's rights and to just to know that, you know, it unintentionally wear white because
Yeah.
it like shamans wear white and
That's
I
so
just
sweet.
I feel like we were really touched. How about you?
Oh yeah, I'm kind of speechless, but I do have a lot of questions. So
Let's have you back.
Yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
I'll come back
Yeah.
next couple weeks. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Thank
And
you
we
so
we'll
much.
dive a little bit more deeper into kind of like maybe like tarot cards or maybe like because I have no idea about that kind of stuff.
Okay,
Like,
yeah.
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, see
I'd
what
like
the
to
viewers
learn.
got to say. What if there's something specific
I
they
always
want to
see-
dive
Yeah.
I
into.
always see you like pull these cards up online, and I'm like, I just look at it, and I'm like, what?
Oh, there's a deck right here.
Yeah,
don't
yeah. Do
even
you
know
want to
what-
pull a card
Yeah.
for each of us?
Oh, sure. Let's do it.
There you go.
I don't even know what this means, by the way, guys.
That's okay.
So,
I don't really
No, but
know.
I'm gonna explain it.
oh,
Okay.
okay.
I'll explain the card that you are, well, what I feel from the card that I get for you.
Okay.
So we'll start
I
with
brought them
Craig.
from home, and this was just a very inexpensive deck. But
No, it's perfect.
but I loved the how they were so fancy on the.
Oh yeah, I love shine. Okay, so we got the 10 of Pentacles and the Queen of Pentacles. Is this live still?
Yeah.
You want to hear?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do.
You want me to hear it unfiltered?
Yes, I want
Sure,
unfiltered,
unfiltered.
raw. Give it to
All
me.
right, so it's the 10 of Pentacles, the Queen of Pentacles reverse. So I think basically what you're now activated, whether it's this session or not session, podcast, or whether it's before or soon after, you're going to become activated in healing your mother wound for sure. So ways in which you haven't felt received growing up, and ways in which you felt that you could kind of speak up for yourself. That's going to help you attract love in a different way, as well as love yourself and communicate more effectively and efficiently, because you kind of tend to go to that you don't know how to, right? And so that's going to start to heal in a way that is going to be really empowering for you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see for you, Amanda. What card wants to come out? All right, we have 2 in reverse. Okay, the Chariot and the 6 of Wands in reverse. And so generally what I would say with these 2 cards is I don't think you're focused on finding the next person or the next thing too much, but just a reminder of when your, like, let's say the distorted feminine side wants to kind of seek solace in relationship,
Yeah.
to sit back and see what the intention behind it, right? Is it a comfort thing? Is it because you really want to? Is it because you feel it's aligned? Is it the right time? Are you at a place where you feel that you're confident in your healing, right? And so it's not that you're not, but it's just a reminder of, like, you don't need to rush to get it. The kids are
Yeah.
going to be okay. You're going to be okay.
I'm gonna be okay.
Everything's going to be solid, and that you have what you need within you to give yourself that security.
Yeah.
And so just always going back to that point, like, I have what I need. You know, even though he may have told you that there's all these things that you can't do without him, that's going to still sit with you. So the
Mhm.
energy will just need to pass. And once you have security in, like, and those thoughts, you know, it's not like they'll ever 100% go away, but once they don't persist is
Mhm.
when you'll start to feel that you're aligning with love.
I love it. Thank you.
Amen.
Oh, look, 10 of Cups at the bottom. This is the card of love and happiness.
Okay.
Which is an indication for both of you that you're going to
For
have
all of
that.
us.
We're
Yeah,
gonna
for
have
everybody.
love and
You're
happiness.
going to
Yes.
have that.
I love it. Thank you so much.
You're
that
welcome.
was so bang on for me, because I feel like I do kind of still sometimes lean towards like just security, but I'm in this process of just becoming secure within myself, kind of
Yeah.
like what I was explaining. So the fact that that came up, it was almost like a reaffirming the fact that Amanda, like, you are your own caretaker. I am, all I need, and I just need to, lean into myself. And I think it's good for a lot of us just to take
And
away.
you are doing it. It's just that reminder for both of you. You're already on that path.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a new family member now. Welcome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for being here, my dear.
Yes.
You're
Thanks,
such a blessing.
Raminder.
Oh, you're welcome.
And this was super exciting. So
Yeah. It
can't
was
wait
great.
for the next one.
Me too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Raminder.
You're welcome.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Damn, you're good.